Imagine walking through a really bustling, crowded flea market.
Oh, yeah, just tables full of absolute junk everywhere.
Exactly. And you're scanning these tables, and suddenly your eye is just drawn to this incredibly shiny, heavily polished brass box.
Right?
It catches the sunlight perfectly. It looks heavy, ornate. I mean, it looks like it belongs in a museum.
Okay, I can picture it.
But right next to it is this dusty, totally plain-looking, unremarkable canvas bag. Now, if you're like almost everyone else in that market, you're going to walk straight up to that brass box, pick it up, admire the craftsmanship, and completely ignore the canvas bag.
Yeah, of course. It's human nature.
Right. But what if the bag holds a priceless, perfectly cut diamond and that beautiful brass box is completely empty?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I mean, we all like to think we'd be the savvy one to check the bag, you know? We love to believe we have this instinct for spotting true value.
We really do.
But today, we're going to explore the psychological mechanisms behind why that is almost never the case. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're looking at a pretty profound essay by Shofeng, and it's titled Seeing Without Recognizing and the Folly of Buying the Casket and Returning the Jewel. The translation we're referencing today was edited by Kinyu.
It's a great piece.
It really is. And our mission for you today is to examine this massive, almost universal human blind spot. Like, why are we biologically and culturally wired to get so distracted by superficial packaging to the point where we completely miss the invaluable jewels sitting right in front of our faces?
It is a phenomenal blind spot. Yeah. And it really dictates so much of human behavior.
Yeah.
And, the author isn't just talking about literal jewels here, though he obviously uses them as a framing device.
Yeah.
He starts by acknowledging this basic truth about human nature, which is that we all desire treasures.
Right. Everybody wants something valuable.
Exactly. You want the rare diamond, sure, but you also want the wise mentor, the truly supportive friend, the deeply virtuous partner. We crave the intrinsic value of these things.
We do.
But Zhu Feng pushes the definition of treasure much further. He argues that the ultimate treasure isn't physical wealth, or even just a good relationship.
What is it then?
He defines the highest value as the truth that allows life to extend towards a higher level space.
Okay.
Specifically, he points to what he calls the spirit of the greatest creator, manifesting through the pure, kind hearts of humanity.
Let's pause right there, actually, because that term, spirit of the greatest creator, that can sound pretty heavy or, abstract.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we go further, how exactly should we be interpreting that within the context of this essay? Like, is he talking about a specific religious deity?
That's a crucial clarification. In the context of his philosophy, you don't necessarily need to view the greatest creator through a traditional orthodox religious lens.
Okay.
You can understand it as the ultimate generative force of the universe, like the source code of reality, the fundamental harmony and truth that just governs existence.
I like that, the source code of reality.
Right. And what he's saying is that this profound universal truth doesn't just exist up in the clouds somewhere. It expresses itself down here on Earth through human beings.
Oh, interesting.
Specifically, through people possessing a genuinely pure and kind heart. That purity is the local manifestation of universal truth. That is the ultimate jewel.
So the purest form of value in the universe is a genuinely kind human heart.
Exactly.
And the author makes this incredible kind of sweeping claim that these treasures, these walking, breathing jewels, are literally everywhere. Like they are appearing and hiding at every single turn in our daily lives.
They are.
Which immediately brings up the central question for you, the listener. If these priceless treasures are constantly surrounding us, why are we completely oblivious to them?
Well, we're oblivious because we lack the internal operating system to process value when it isn't formatted the way society taught us to expect.
We're constantly searching for that shiny brass box from the flea market.
Precisely. If universal truth or profound kindness comes wrapped in a dusky canvas bag, meaning it doesn't have status or wealth or a flashy presentation, our brains literally filter out as background noise.
Wow.
We are, as the author puts it, blind to the jewel.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the fascinating part is how the author doesn't just leave this as some high-altitude philosophical theory.
No, he doesn't. He gets very personal.
Yeah, he proves the concept by exposing this deeply personal, incredibly raw failure from his own life. He tells a story from back in 1995 about his family hiring a woman named Rebecca to help around the house.
Right.
And the impact she had on their daily existence sounds, honestly, nothing short of magical.
It's the perfect case study of encountering that ultimate treasure in an everyday setting.
Exactly. So Rebecca arrives, and within 3 days, she completely masters cooking Chinese food.
3 days.
Right. She takes over the household management, and suddenly the house is immaculate. It's spotless, perfectly organized. But the author makes it very clear that her real value wasn't the chores.
No, not at all.
He describes this physiological shift of coming home. He and his beloved would return from work, their kid would come home from school, and Rebecca was always at the door.
Always there to greet them.
Yeah, with this immense warmth, taking their bags, asking about their day. He specifically notes that it felt like reuniting with long-lost relatives every single evening.
That detail is the hinge of the entire story, I think. Because think about the mechanics of a normal employer-employee dynamic.
It's usually pretty transactional.
Right. I pay you money, you provide a clean floor and a hot meal. But Rebecca was providing something entirely different. She was generating an atmosphere.
Atmosphere, yeah.
The author talks about sitting down in the dining room. The food wasn't some extravagant Michelin star feast, but it was delectable. And more importantly, it was served in this environment of total harmony.
Like the stress just melted away.
Exactly. The fatigue, the psychological burden of the entire day would completely evaporate the moment they walked through the door. She wasn't just doing a job, she was actively manifesting that pure and kind heart we defined earlier as the ultimate universal treasure.
She even brought life to dead dirt.
Oh.
The garden, yeah. The author mentions their yard was completely barren, just an empty space. And Rebecca brings in these exotic plants on her own initiative. And within 2 months, the entire property is a vibrant, blossoming garden.
Incredible.
She literally terraformed their environment into a sanctuary.
She did. She transformed their physical and emotional reality. And yet, this is where we see the catastrophic failure of human perception.
Here comes the blind spot.
Right. Because despite living inside this sanctuary, the family completely failed to comprehend what was actually generating the magic.
Yeah. 6 months later, the family has to move, and they just let her go.
They fire her.
They fire her, and to make it infinitely worse, they carelessly lose the little slip of paper that had her forwarding address on it.
Yeah.
They completely severed the connection. But let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure.
Couldn't you argue that they just needed a housekeeper, they moved, and they didn't need one anymore? I mean, isn't that just life?
Well, it is just life if you are only evaluating the wooden box. Right. If you view Rebecca solely as a mechanism for clean floors, then yes, her utility ended when they moved. But the author's overwhelming regret, looking back, is the realization that the clean floors were just the packaging.
The packaging.
The actual value was her spirit, her purity, the harmony she brought into their lives. You don't just discard someone who brings that level of peace into your existence simply because your zip code changes.
It makes me think of, like, someone buying a vintage high-performance sports car, but they only value it because they like the color of the paint.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Like, they don't even know how to drive a manual transmission. They don't care about the engine. They just like how the paint looks in their driveway.
Right.
And eventually, the paint gets a little scratched, so they just send the car to the junkyard. They threw away a masterpiece of engineering because they only ever valued the outermost layer of atoms.
That is a phenomenal way to look at it. You're describing the exact mechanism of being blind to the jewel.
Yeah.
Because they didn't conceptually understand the value of her pure heart. They didn't build any psychological safeguards to protect the relationship.
You don't put a cheap trinket in a bank vault.
Exactly. They lost her address because their brains hadn't categorized her as irreplaceable. The author is brutally honest about this failure, too. He writes, "I am someone who was blind to the jewel."
It's so raw.
He and his beloved now look back and sigh with immense regret, asking where they could ever find a woman like that again.
He writes, "One wrong step causes everlasting regret. Discarding the jewel hurts the heart the most. Who should be blamed when blind to the jewel? Blame no one but your own blindness."
It's a heavy realization.
It is. But the essay pivots here in a really compelling way. Because the author doesn't just want us to feel sorry for him. He wants to show us that this isn't a modern, isolated incident. He argues this is our factory setting as human beings.
Precisely. What's fascinating here is he moves from the micro-level domestic tragedy to a macro-level historical precedent.
Oh, the Zheng state story.
Yes. He introduces a classic Chinese idiom and story to explain the underlying psychology, the story of the Zheng state buyer. And it perfectly illustrates why, even if universal truth is handed directly to us, our default programming almost guarantees we will throw it away.
The story of the Zheng state is so absurd it sounds like a comedy sketch.
It really does.
The author recounts this famous tale of a person from the ancient Zheng state who goes to the market to buy a precious gem. The merchant presents this magnificent jewel, but it is housed inside an incredibly ornate, gorgeously carved, highly decorated wooden casket. So what does the buyer do? They are so mesmerized by the craftsmanship of the wooden box, so entirely captivated by the flashy exterior, that they pay the merchant, keep the wooden casket, and literally hand the priceless jewel back to the seller.
It's the ultimate metaphor for human foolishness.
It is.
And while we might laugh at the buyer from Zhang, the author's point is that we execute this exact same cognitive error every single day.
Every day.
The people of Zhang didn't lack eyesight, they lacked insight. Their brains were calibrated to value tangible, easily measurable craftsmanship, like the carving on the wood over the dense, quiet, abstract value of the gem.
We do prefer things we can easily measure, don't we?
Oh, absolutely.
It's why we value the salary over the workplace culture. Like, you can put a number on a salary. You can't really put a number on a boss who actually treats you with dignity.
Exactly. Our brains love metrics. The casket is a metric.
Right.
The casket has corners, it has weight, it has visible effort. The jewel is just a rock, unless you understand its rarity. Applying this back to the author's own life, his family were the Zheng state buyers.
They bought the box.
They happily consumed the wooden box, the folded laundry, the hot meals, the swept yard. They valued the tangible outputs. But they completely missed the jewel, Rebecca's rare, pure soul, and they carelessly returned it to the universe when they moved.
So we have this fundamental bug in our operating system where we constantly mistake the packaging for the product.
Yes.
But the author takes this concept and aims it squarely at the modern world. He doesn't just leave it as a critique of how we handle relationships or domestic help. He applies the buying the casket metaphor to how society approaches knowledge, truth, and intellect.
This is where the essay becomes incredibly sharp.
Yeah, it gets a little spicy here.
It does. He targets a specific demographic that he refers to as bookworms or modern intellectuals. And he paints a very recognizable portrait.
Oh, we all know these people.
Right. He describes people with massive vocabularies and formidable memories. They have pristine reasoning skills. They write eloquent articles. They dominate online forums. They can debate endlessly. And they back up every single point with an avalanche of historical references and citations.
Right. But on paper, these sound like the exact people we are supposed to admire.
They do.
But the author completely dismantles them. He says you can read through all their brilliant essays and perfectly structured arguments, and you will find that they are just recycling worn-out cliches.
Yeah.
He states boldly that in all their mountains of text, there is not a single glimmer of genuine wisdom.
Because, to use the metaphor, they are master craftsmen of wooden boxes.
Wow.
The eloquence, the citations, the flawless grammar, the historical references, that is just the ornate carving on the outside of the casket. It looks incredibly impressive. It intimidates people. It commands respect in academic or public spheres.
Right.
But if you open the box, there is no living truth inside. There is no gem.
So what does this all mean? Okay, I have to push back here because I feel like the author is attacking the very foundations of learning.
I can see why you'd say that.
Wait a minute. Isn't having strong reasoning a good thing? Isn't citing your sources, understanding history, and knowing the orthodox foundation of a subject exactly how we avoid making terrible mistakes? Like, are we just supposed to burn the libraries and rely entirely on vibes?
It's a very fair challenge, but let's look at the mechanics of what the author is actually criticizing. If we connect this to the bigger picture, he explicitly says it's not problematic if they lack their own thoughts.
Oh, okay.
The accumulation of knowledge isn't the crime. The danger is how these intellectuals deploy that knowledge.
How so?
They use history and orthodoxy not as a foundation to build upon, but as a weapon to shackle and restrict the development of reality. They become so obsessed with defending the rules of the past that they actively suffocate any new living truth that tries to emerge in the present.
I see. It reminds me of someone who memorizes the entire engineering manual for how a bicycle works.
Okay, I like this.
Right. They know the physics, the gear ratios, the exact torque needed for every bolt. They can lecture for hours about the history of the bicycle, but they completely refuse to actually get on a bike and ride it because riding a bike is messy.
Yes.
You might fall off, You have to balance in real time. It's unpredictable. They prefer the safety of the manual to the vulnerability of the ride.
That is brilliant.
Yes.
The manual is the wooden box, the actual experience of riding, the wind in your face, the forward momentum that is the jewel.
That's the jewel.
The bookworms are terrified of the jewel because it can't be perfectly controlled by their intellect.
Right.
To hammer this point home, the essay draws a really powerful parallel to the biblical story of Jesus and the Pharisees.
Okay.
Now, regardless of your personal religious beliefs, the historical and sociological dynamic here is a perfect illustration of the author's point.
Right. Jesus arrives, and what is he doing? He is preaching actual living truth. He is offering the jewel directly to the people. He's talking about love, forgiveness, spiritual liberation.
And how did the scholars and the Pharisees react? These were the ultimate bookworms of their era.
Right.
They had the laws memorized backward and forward. They were the appointed guardians of tradition. When confronted with living truth, they didn't rejoice. They panicked.
They freaked out.
They responded by spouting rigid dogmas. They used their encyclopedic knowledge of the rules to vehemently hinder and attack the spread of the truth. They were so busy fiercely protecting the ornate wooden box of their religious orthodoxy that they tried to destroy the actual jewels standing right in front of them.
Because the truth didn't fit neatly into the box they had built.
Exactly.
The truth was challenging their status. I mean, think about how directly that applies to us today. Think about your own social media feeds or your LinkedIn feed right now.
Oh boy.
How many posts do you scroll past where someone is using incredibly complex jargon, citing 3 different case studies, and using immaculate formatting, but they aren't actually saying anything?
All of them.
They are just defending a status quo or showing off their ability to build a box. We are drowning in a society of Zhang state buyers, trading beautifully polished, entirely empty caskets back and forth, hitting like on the craftsmanship, while we are collectively starving for actual wisdom.
It is a deeply sobering assessment of our modern discourse. We have built an entire educational and professional infrastructure that heavily incentivizes and rewards the polishing of the wooden casket while almost entirely ignoring the cultivation of the jewel.
Yeah.
We value the appearance of intelligence over the presence of genuine, pure-hearted wisdom.
Which brings us to the final and I think most profound twist in this entire deep dive.
It's a great conclusion.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because after dragging us through this uncomfortable reality, from his personal guilt over firing Rebecca, to the historical foolishness of the Zheng state, to the rigid, empty dogmas of modern intellectuals, the author doesn't just leave us in despair.
Thankfully.
Right. He provides a stunning conclusion about where we actually need to be looking for this ultimate treasure.
He fundamentally shifts the entire paradigm of the search. Up until this point, the essay implies that the jewel is something external, like a great employee, a wise teacher, a historical truth.
Something you find outside.
Exactly. But his final revelation is that the truly invaluable gem isn't out there in the world waiting to be found. It is located directly within people's hearts. Specifically, within your own heart.
The ultimate treasure isn't a flawless argument you can win. It isn't the perfect relationship you can finally secure. It is the pure, kind heart residing within you.
And this leads to his ultimate, urgent warning.
What's the warning?
He argues that if we fail to recognize and protect this internal gem, if we don't actively guard the pure and kind heart within ourselves, we are doomed.
Doomed to what?
Because if we don't value our internal jewel, we will inevitably spend our entire lives frantically chasing those externally decorated wooden boxes. We will exhaust ourselves pursuing superficial knowledge, rigid dogmas, titles, wealth, and the outward appearances of success. We will become the ultimate fools of the Zheng state.
We will literally sell our own souls to buy a fancy container.
Exactly.
We will trade our internal jewel for an external casket that society tells us is valuable.
This raises an important question, and it forces a very uncomfortable but necessary audit of how we spend our time.
Yeah.
I would ask you, listening right now, to take a hard look at your daily pursuits. Where is your energy actually going? Are you actively nurturing the pure, kind heart within yourself?
That's the real work.
Right. Are you prioritizing genuine warmth and empathy in the people around you, like the author failed to do with Rebecca? Or are you spending 90% of your waking hours frantically polishing the exterior wooden box you present to the world?
Stressing over the resume.
Yes, stressing over your resume, agonizing over how smart your arguments sound, and obsessing over your adherence to the arbitrary rules of success.
It brings us right back to that flea market from the very beginning.
It does.
You're standing there, agonizing over the shiny brass box and the dusty canvas bag, terrified of making the wrong choice. But what Xu Feng's essay ultimately suggests is that the entire flea market is a distraction.
The whole thing.
If the ultimate jewel, that pure and kind heart, is already located within us. Well, could it be that the very act of frantically searching the external world for treasures is exactly the mechanism that blinds us to the immense wealth we already possess?
That's a really powerful thought.
Maybe the harder we look for the shiny box out there, the further we get from the diamond in our own pocket. Something to deeply consider before you pick up the next wooden casket.